Good evening, everyone. This is a this CPOC Commissioner meeting, and I am the interim chair, Hassan Bennett. The time is now 6:07, and this meeting is called the order. This meeting was properly advertised pursuant to the Pennsylvania Sunshine Act. Next, I will call roll. Commissioners. Once I say your name, please say here or just acknowledge you're present in some way. Commissioner Melanie DeBose.
I am here.
Commissioner Melanie DeBose is here. Commissioner Hakeem PA.
Present.
Commissioner PA is here. Commissioner John Solomon.
Commissioner Solomon here, present.
I am Commissioner Bennett, and I am present. All commissioners are present. Next, has the commissioners reviewed tonight's agenda?
Yes.
So, do I hear a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
A motion to approve tonight's proposed agenda.
Commissioner Hakeem PA has motioned to approve tonight's agenda. Does anyone second that motion?
Commissioner Solomon here. I'll second that motion.
Commissioner Solomon has seconded that motion. All in favor of approving tonight's meeting agenda, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All commissioners has approved tonight's meeting agenda. Next, I will forward the meeting to our executive director, Ms. Tanya McClary, for our agency business. Ms. McClary?
Good evening, everybody. If we can open up the slides, please. Wonderful. So if we can go to our first slide, please. So as always, I want to remind the community of our mission statement. So the mission of the Citizens Police Oversight Commission is to oversee and investigate the conduct, policies, and practices of the Philadelphia Police Department. Currently, CPOC receives complaints of police misconduct, audits, and monitors internal affairs investigations of police disciplinary procedures, sits and votes on PBI panels at police discipline hearings, conducts oversight of police shootings, analyzes police data, and develops policy recommendations and report, and engages in outreach and training. Next slide. And so for my report today, actually, if we can go a couple of slides down, please. If you can just keep going till we, so let's talk about why if you can go back up, please. If we can talk about why civilian oversight is important, it protects human rights, it promotes constitutional policing, it increases public confidence and trust in the police, it builds bridges between law enforcement and the public, it supports effective policing and ensures greater accountability and enhances risk management. My hope was that for this meeting was to start to take each one of these and really look at it in a very holistic way so that this leaps off the page. But we've been in a lot of things going on in our office, which I'll report about in a little while that made that not possible. But starting at our next meeting, I really want to start to talk about why these things happen. And so I'll give an example of the enhances risk management. So a lot of times I think that's one of the very furthest things from people's mind when they think about oversight. But the reason why we do audits of like police shootings, why we do audits of complaints, why we monitor lawsuits is because ideally our job is to help the police department and the city manage risk. So for example, if we're starting to see a pattern of things in complaints, we bring that to the police department, because if there's a pattern, maybe that means they need to change something about their training, or they need to change something about their policy, right? So that lowers the risk of officers continuing to do that kind of behavior. Or if we're looking at a shooting and we notice that maybe there were some bystanders, innocent people that have nothing to do with the situation in the background as potentially the shooting is happening, we bring that to the attention of the department to say maybe we should do some training on that. Maybe we should make sure that officers are really managing the risk of bystander endangerment, because of course, if a bystander is unfortunately killed in like a officer involved shooting, we know more than likely that family is going to sue. There's going to be potential financial liability to the city and to the department, but also there could be potential things that aren't happening in the training of the officers. And so those are some concrete examples about what it means when it enhances risk management. When the city and the department allows the oversight agency to really get into the weeds, to get down into the nitty-gritty of all of the various things in the department, we often are able to lift these things up to say, let's talk about how we can keep the community safer, how we can keep the officers safer, and how we can manage more of the risk potentially to the city of Philadelphia. And with that, we can go back up to the second slide, please. But that's an example. And so I'll be doing more of that as we go forward, just so that it comes off the page and the city understands what these red words mean, right, in real life. I wanted to give the public an update on the seating of the new commissioners, and we can just go back up one more slide. So just to remind people that the process is that the mayor's office and the city council appoints people to a selection panel, a 5-person panel. Below is the list of the people that have been working with us for quite a while to make sure that we can have a robust selection panel of people to choose from. And so I'm happy to announce that they are in the final throes. They're in the final throes of hopefully solidifying a slate of candidates. So if we can go to the next slide. We were originally hoping that the hearing was going to take place in and Attorney Twigg, before I conclude, we might want to make sure we have the most recent. I think this is not the most recent slide deck. But the public town hall is probably going to be in March. We were hoping it would happen this month, but the selection panel, as I said, is still concluding their work. And so we're hoping that they will have a slate in the next couple of weeks, and that once that slate is handled, or that process has gone forward, then we will have a public town hall. So we're going to be changing that from February to probably March at this point, hopefully early March. And that'll be your chance to come out and to really meet the candidates. There will be 5 of them. As you know, this is supposed to be a 9-person commission. We have 4 commissioners, so we're going to be hearing from 5 new folk, and then give you a chance to ask them some questions about them, and to hear from them about what their vision is and why they were excited to apply to be a part of this commission. It's a diverse pool of people, and so I think that the community will be excited to have a chance to actually meet with them and speak with them. And that will hopefully be a hybrid meeting where people will be able to gather in person, but we also don't want to exclude people that can't get out. And so we are going to hopefully have a venue where people can participate online as well as participate in person. After that, we will have a committee council hearing on the whole, where Councilmember Jones and I will present the 5 commissioner candidates at that hearing, and that the council will then do a formal vote on a resolution to nominate these candidates to formally become commissioners. And then once that final confirmation happens, the new commissioners will take place. It's going to be the Thursday following that committee of the whole. So we will make sure that we keep you all updated on those dates and things of that nature. And so we're just excited that we're kind of getting close to hopefully being able to the point where you all will get to meet the candidates for those 5 seats. And so if we could keep going down on the slides, please. Keep going. All right. Well, I am so excited to talk about this topic of the PTAB, the Police Termination Arbitration Board. And I know for a lot of people, they're like, well, wait, what is that? There's a board that actually looks at officers when they get their jobs terminated. There is. There's a whole board and an entire process. And one of the things, as we were talking about in terms of risk management, is to also look at systems that the city has put into place to see if they are potentially working or not working, and flagging things for the administration. And so I'm very happy to announce that our office released a report where we evaluated, we just call it the PTAB for short, PTAB, for the Police Termination Arbitration Board. And we came up with some very significant findings. And I'm just really excited for all of the partners that are either joining us on the line tonight or just work with us generally to talk about how many people retweeted this report, retweeted the things that we talked about. And actually that actually ended with a front page story on the Philadelphia Inquirer. Also several other news outlets that picked up this story and started asking questions about, well, what is that process? What is the process when an officer is terminated? And so I'm going to turn it over to the expert on this issue for our office. I'm going to ask if General Counsel Catherine Twigg can come on and really walk people through the findings and why this is important. Like, why should we care about what happens to officers that are terminated from the department?
Thank you, Director McClary. So I'll start out by, thanking everyone from the CPOC team, because a lot of work went into gathering this data and putting it together in a hopefully useful format for the public and for the community. And we're really proud of this work product. And again, really grateful for how many people picked it up and are sharing it in their advocacy communities and with their friends and neighbors. We really believe that as we do this advocacy around making changes in the new contract, that the public's voice should be heard. And that involves, educating people about the terms that may not be very clear to the public, right? Sharing whatever information we have. And if there's not enough information, talking about the need for actually looking at how these processes work, why we get to the outcomes we get to, and what needs to be improved. So tonight we'd like to share 4 high-level takeaways from the PTAB report. As Director McClary said, PTAB is the Police Termination Arbitration Board. And we could probably speak on this for hours because it's pretty technical, but I'll just keep it high level to say that we're talking about grievance arbitration in the process of this report. And that is the individual complaint of an individual employee, right? In this case, a PPD officer, who wants to challenge the discipline against them. They have the right under their contract and under state law to go through a process called grievance arbitration, where they challenge the discipline that was levied against them for some kind of misconduct. And they have the opportunity to go through the arbitration process and have a hearing on that. We focus specifically on cases where officers were fired for their misconduct, because we feel that those are the most serious cases where the community is very much impacted and public trust is very much impacted when a police officer who the police commissioner has determined is not fit to serve, their misconduct has been serious enough that they shouldn't hold this job anymore, is nonetheless reinstated by an arbitrator back to the police force, and they are overruling that police commissioner decision. So again, don't want to get bogged down in the weeds. Happy to talk and take any questions later. And also I encourage everyone to read the report. But getting on to the high level takeaways, the first is that reinstatement rates. So by this, we're talking about the percentage of officers who are fired and then reinstated by an arbitrator, right? The reinstatement rates remain alarmingly high. We've seen from some investigative journalism a few years ago, excellent investigative journalism done by the Inquirer, that many cases of discipline are overturned. CPOC looked just at terminations, as I said, and we found that in the last 3 to 4 years, 85% of officers who were fired by the Philadelphia Police Department were reinstated by arbitrators. The next high-level point is undermining departmental accountability. So in many of these cases, reinstated officers were returned to the police force despite documented concerns from PPD leadership about that potential impact on public trust and of officer morale, right? We want to think about how the other officers, the coworkers, how they feel about working with somebody who has engaged in the kind of misconduct these folks sometimes have. Arbitrators are thus overruling decisions made by the police commissioner about who is fit to be a police officer. Next slide, please, Jody. Okay. The other thing we found, and I'll just zoom out for a second here. The PTAB is a creation of the last contract. So in 2020, or excuse me, the contract that started in 2021, set up this idea for helping improve arbitration outcomes, grievance arbitration outcomes. And that idea was to have a small specialized group of arbitrators who hear the most serious cases, those termination cases. They're specialized, they're trained, they'll be diverse in certain ways. But unfortunately, what we saw when we evaluated this program after it's been in place for several years is that those requirements are not currently being met. So PTAB is required to have at least 10 arbitrators on this group, with an equal number of them being appointed by each of the parties, right? The FOP, which is the police union, and the city. At least 40% of the arbitrators must be diverse, which is defined as women, people of color, LGBTQ plus individuals, or other underrepresented groups. Right now, there are only 9 arbitrators on the PTAB. 5 of them were appointed by the FOP, and only 3 were appointed by the city. So we see a disparity there. In addition to 1 person who was jointly reported, that does comply with the provisions of PTAB where the parties can agree on an arbitrator. But this means that the program is currently failing to meet the first 2 requirements. And the other thing we highlight in the report is that the diversity requirement has been met entirely by the city's picks. The information that we have is that none of the picks for PTAB over the years that it's existed thus far have been, none of the FOP's picks have been diverse candidates as it's defined by the PTAB contract. The final thing that we wanted to point out is just the continued lack of transparency. The arbitration process remains opaque, lengthy, and confusing. This is a process that the public is not let into, and this continues to erode community confidence in the system. When we see the kind of outcomes that we see and the overall data that we can look at when we evaluate the outcomes of cases over several years, the lack of transparency really can hurt the public perception of programs like this. So that's everything. I'll turn, if it's okay with you, Director McClary, quickly ask the commissioners if they have any questions or comments on this.
That would be great.
Commissioner Solomon, do you have any questions regarding the TAP report?
No, I don't have any questions yet. Thank you.
Commissioner DeBose, do you have any questions regarding the PTAB report?
I do have one, and I hope that it's relevant. I heard you, Attorney Twigg, talk about the feedback you've gotten from some of our stakeholders and some of the general public. Has there been any feedback from the FOP or any elected officials?
Thank you for the question, Commissioner DeBose. I'm trying to think. I don't think that we've really heard anything from the city yet. I believe the FOP declined to comment in the media coverage, and I know that we're often talking with council. We shared. I think part of our interest in doing work on termination or arbitration is that city council has a lot of concern about this. So I'm not sure that we've had, we obviously speak with city council and they're very supportive of a lot of our work. But I don't know that there's been anything public that I recall.
Thank you.
Does any other commissioner have any questions regarding the PTAB report?
No questions. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, commissioners. I have a questions. I know when it comes to reading legal documentations, uh, the Superior Court of Pennsylvania, as well as the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania, as well as the Supreme Court of the land, have established that must means a demand. It's a requirement. It's an obligation. So I'm reading the requirements, and I'm reading that it says must. How long has this been going on that they haven't met the diversity requirements of the PTAB arbitrations, as well as how long has it been since we were sitting with 9 arbitrators?
So
Thank you
I'll
for that.
answer the question around
Sure.
diversity, and if Attorney Twigg wants to. What's interesting about it is that they have been meeting the diversity requirements, but only because the city is seating diverse arbiters.
Mm-hmm.
So from what we've been able to see and identify, the Fraternal Order Police has not seated any diverse member of this board. And so all the diversity has been met by the city. And so our reading of the legislation is this should be something that's joint, so that both sides should be having diverse arbiters. So that the city should be having them, which they do, and so should the FOP. And so our concern is that from what we've been able to gather and identify the people that they have put forward, none of them have been diverse. All of them have been white men. And so we have some concern about that. But I'm going to let Attorney Twigg, if she wants to say anything else about that, and then also the second part of your question.
Thank you so much. So, one thing I think I'll start with is what we know about the current makeup of PTAB is this is a snapshot in time, right? So the administration provided the names and the information that we included in the report to City Council in response to City Council's questions during and after the public hearing in November around the FOP contract. So, that I think really highlights CPOC's involvement in that contract and all of the community comments and city council comments and the advocacy that took place there was really important because it prompted some questions to go to the administration, which they followed up on after, right? The 9 folks that they identified at that time that's a snapshot of a moment in time. So part of the reason that we're down to 9 from 10 is that I believe there was a city appointed arbitrator who resigned. It's my best of my recollection, it was in early December of last year. So it was pretty recent, right? But it does highlight one of the potential issues with the way that the PTAB portion of the contract is written is it wasn't clear enough how to replace that person and whether or not the city was allowed to replace that person and on what timeline, that kind of thing. And it's quite a technical portion of the contract. So there's the provision for allowing to remove certain PTAB arbitrators. And then, the challenge is how do we keep a diverse, balanced board, which also meets the requirements, right, of having 10 and having an equal number from each side. And so all of these questions are questions of drafting in the next round of contract. And they're questions of who is actually in charge when there's a problem of, there are more FOP appointees and fewer city appointees. Who is the body that should be saying, oh yeah, we need to even this up, right? Because the whole idea here was for it to have even elections from either side. Or the whole idea should be that if someone resigns, you can replace that person on this timeline. So I think that essentially your questions are getting to highlighting some information that hasn't been public and also might be problems with drafting that could be addressed in the next round of contracting, right? Not everything has to be a fight about it not working, although that there might be some deficiencies we can address. Sometimes there are just gaps that we don't learn about until these things are in practice for a little while. Does that answer your question?
And I just wanted to add to that, if I can, Chair, in terms of one of the things that CPOC called for was a task force to evaluate this, in which CPOC would be a part. I mean, one of the things is that some of the same questions that you're asking, we have, because also one of the things, there's just some things that are happening that we're not sure further the goals of what PTAB was supposed to achieve. So for example, when people are removed, they continue to hear cases. If you've been removed for whatever reason, your term was up or whatever the situation is, you're continuing to hear cases. If I was on the bench and I was Judge McClary, once I stop being Judge McClary, I don't continue to hear cases. And so, you know, so there's several things going on that we're not necessarily making a judgment on. We have some suggestions, but we're saying, at least if nothing else, there should be an evaluation. You know, processes of this nature, as Attorney Twigg said, that are very technical and things like that, there should be an evaluation period. We're a couple of years in now. And so we should be, is this working? Is it achieving the goals that we thought it was going to achieve? And in the places where it is, great, let's keep that. But in the places where it's not, we need to be looking at how to get it to the place for the goals that we want to achieve. And so one of our big recommendations is let's put together an evaluation team, a task force, whatever language the city would like to use, and let's evaluate this and see if it's meeting the goals that we wanted it to meet.
I appreciate it. I appreciate you, our Executive Director Tanya McClary. I appreciate our Attorney General Catherine Twigg, as well as the rest of the staff, because this seems to be extremely important, right? We're at the end of, we're going on to a parade for football tomorrow, so I'll take a note from my chair, from my executive director, and relate this to football. It's like the Rooney Rule. The Rooney Rule was to protect so football teams would not just exclude the diversity requirements, right? That Johnny Cochran said, listen, you guys are only hiring Caucasian people. You got to fix this or you're going to see me in court. Also, it's kind of like the Batson claim. You can, where jurors, if we take it to the courtroom, potential jurors cannot be excluded due to race and ethnicity, so forth and so on. So I appreciate you guys for pointing this out. If everyone else has made a requirement and a law for this, then I'm glad that we have analysts and policy proposals so we can make this change. Thank you.
Chairman, I think Commissioner Solomon's hand is raised.
Commissioner Solomon?
I'm so sorry. I did that by accident.
Okay. Executive Director, the floor is back on you.
Thank you. If we can go to the next slide. So I am very excited to say, because I don't think I ever announced this to the public, that, you know, when I talk with my colleagues across the country to do oversight, all of them want somebody that can help them figure out government affairs, right? That can help them really figure out how to handle special projects and initiatives. And I'm proud to say that in our office, we had such a talent. She had already been in this role, really. We all went to her for these things. And so we've made it official and made her a manager in the office. And so I'm going to bring on our manager of government affairs and special initiatives, Layla Khalil, to talk about the work that she's doing. And her work at this time is extremely crucial. For those of you that follow oversight nationally, there have been attempts on communities across the country to override oversight authority. So for example, in the state of Florida, there's no more oversight agencies. We've watched all of our colleagues in those cities now having to put out resumes to find jobs because there was a statewide initiative passed by the governor that said you cannot have oversight offices. When I was in the city of Dallas, they didn't go that far, but the state of Texas attempted to erode things so that we would just be ineffective. So even though they didn't say you can't have oversight, but they were like, the oversight agency can't have access to this, can't do this, would have just made us just like a rubber stamp. And so we were able to overcome that, but only with the vision and the smartness and know-how of people like Layla. And so I would like to bring her on to talk about the work that she's doing. And she is filling a very crucial function in our office right now.
Thanks so much, Director McClary. I really appreciate that. And thanks everybody. I'm again Layla Khalil. I use she, her pronouns. And I'm coming in as I was formerly a senior policy analyst with CPOC, coming into this government affairs, community affairs, and special projects liaison position. And I'm really excited to be able to share a little bit more about what that will look like and how we're enhancing and leveraging our connections so that CPOC is aware, on the ground, able to just reach out as soon as anything we need starts to happen. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of the efforts that we've been doing in terms of government affairs over the last few months. And I'll start with City Council, where we've had, I think, our team has shared with you all so many victories and successes at the local level. The PTAB report is a good example of collaboration with our local stakeholders and learning a lot more about a super complex part of the police reform landscape and all of the different parts that we need to know about it. And the other part, right, is about this FOP bargaining contract, collective bargaining agreement that's coming up for the first time in a few years. The last one came out, it was lasted 2021 to 2024, got extended an additional year. So here we are, CPOC, right, first time seat at the table, first time getting to really ask for the things that we're looking for. And council members really jumped at the opportunity to support us in what we were looking for in that in this round of bargaining, right? And so one of the big things that that came out of some of the conversations from City Hall following the November 21st hearing that happened at the end of last year in 2024 was thinking through how all of the council members who showed their support, with their words, with their questions in council, how could we kind of bring those folks together and show, right, that, elected officials, Philadelphians, everybody's on board to get this right and continue the mission of creating an oversight agency in Philly that does certain things. And one of those things is independent investigations. That's really clear. That's really clear throughout the enabling legislation and also in conversations folks were having about what it means to move from the Police Advisory Commission over to the CPOC. And so I think one of the best things that came out from sort of our connections and conversations was 10 council members signed on to a letter led by Councilmember Nicholas O'Rourke, which Chair Hassan Bennett, in the last meeting really lifted up as such a great victory for us. So again, and the chair at that time named all the council members as well, who signed on, who are showing their support, and it's 10 of them, right, out of a total of 17 council members. So that means more than a majority of council supports CPOC independent investigations, right? Council members at large, district council members, it doesn't really matter who they represent. They all came together to say, Mayor Parker, thank you so much for prioritizing CPOC, prioritizing independent investigations, prioritizing police reform and independent oversight in our city. And so that was a huge statement for us. And I think it's emblematic of like the collaborative and partnerships that we've been building over the last couple of years or so. And then the next bit, I'm going to just finish up my slide here. I'm shifting a little bit, but happy to take questions at the end, is a little bit more work at the state level, which Director McCleary was mentioning as well. And I think a big part of that, right, is meeting with legislators, both Philly representatives, but also reps who maybe are over in Allegheny County, in the Pittsburgh area, or right in the smaller, more remote, rural counties in PA, in Pennsylvania, who might be interested in developing an oversight agency for them, for their local law enforcement, or for their local residents to be able to kind of have some sort of independent oversight of any policing that happens in their communities. And one of the things that, so I was able to go out on the 4th, which was last week. It was the last Tuesday when Governor Shapiro was actually making his budget address. It was a really great opportunity, both to be able to see The governor expressed his priorities in terms of what he's looking to make better for the state this year and in this budget cycle, but also to get to talk to legislators, flag for them. CPOC, many didn't know we existed, right? And wanted to learn more, but also others. I think the best part for me was others who knew about, the Police Advisory Commission, who were very familiar with reforms that had been tried and successfully pursued, and then others that weren't implemented. That type of information gathering and those conversations really helped us get a clearer sense of what kind of advocacy we need to be doing going forward. And it was just like a great first step. But I also wanted to really highlight something that's a big deal in terms of law enforcement for Governor Shapiro's budget this year that he mentioned clearly in the address, which is seeking to legalize adult use cannabis in Pennsylvania. Mostly, right, so that the courts and the police aren't using their resources, their limited resources to overburden themselves doing this type of enforcement, right? And so the governor is thinking smart about the resources that are available to us, understanding some of the challenges that the PPD has mentioned, and thinking through really, really smart solutions that other jurisdictions, have already pursued, right? And I think that's a big piece of it too, is that, all of our partners, Delaware, New York, New Jersey, our neighboring states all have already done this. And so thinking through whether we want to be another state in the Commonwealth being another state in the nation who takes on this like smart approach to thinking about how to use resources going forward. So with that, I hope I was brief, and I'm very open to taking any questions if that's all right with you, Director McCleary.
So Chair, we're kicking things back over to you to see if anybody has any questions.
Commissioner Solomon, do you have any questions?
No, I do not. Thank you.
Commissioner Hakeem PA, any questions for
No
Layla?
questions.
Commissioner Melanie DeBose, do you
I
have
have no
any
questions, but I do have a comment to say thank you for really keeping our thumb on the pulse of what's happening, not only across Pennsylvania, but across this nation. Oversight is so critically important that we don't ever want to be accused of missing anything that could benefit the people of our Commonwealth. So thank you for your work. Thank you for the vision to make this position happen, Director McCleary. And just kudos to the teams that are really moving forward with the overall vision of what CPOC will be as we continue on.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you to our executive director for developing this position. And Layla, I always tell you, you were made for this position. Your charisma, your willingness to work with people, your ability to listen to people, right? And try to find solutions that not only that solutions that will help us collaborate with our government officials. So I always tell you personally that I'm glad you're part of this team, and I will continue to tell you as you continue to display how much you are a blessing to CPOC. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bennett, Chair Bennett. That means a lot coming from you, and I can only say that I really, really appreciate it.
You deserve it. I'll hand it back to our executive director.
And before Layla goes off, I want to also say the importance of her work. So, for example, the issue that she just brought back in around cannabis, we tackled that in Dallas, and it was the Oversight Office. I'm always going to shout out the Oversight So it was the Oversight Office that we did a study on misdemeanor arrest in the city of Dallas. And of course, it wasn't shocking that the impact was in Black and brown communities. And one of the biggest impacts was people that were getting arrested for marijuana. And we're talking about simple possession. I'm not talking about, people dealing marijuana. We're talking about just simple possession of marijuana, which is illegal in the state of Texas. And we worked really hard to get the police commissioner and the city council to put pressure on the police commissioner to deprioritize those arrests. And meaning that if somebody literally just had 2 ounces of marijuana less, we wanted it to be 4. We couldn't get to 4, but we at least got to 2. That they would just either be cited or just let go, because it takes officers off the street for hours processing somebody for an arrest because it was an arrestable offense. And we did a study 2 years later, and those numbers significantly decreased in that area in terms of misdemeanor arrests for marijuana. So it is possible. There's creative ways for us to be possible. And I'm just excited about how Layla will be helping us think about these strategies. So I just wanted to bring an example of that from a jurisdiction where I was. So things are possible.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Director McCleary, with your vision, like we've turned the page on so many things. So I'm excited to see how much more we can do.
Thank you, thank you. All righty. Our next slide, please. So I am excited to say our Director of Investigations is not here tonight. So I'm not excited that he's not here, but I'm excited that, to me, one of the strengths of a good leader is when you have somebody in the wings that can step into your stead when need be. And so because Director Cato could not be here, he did have someone that could step into his shoes. And that is Jeffrey Hussein, who was one of our investigators. And so I'm so excited that he's going to come tonight. He is such a valuable part of that team, that division. He is relied on a lot. He brings a lot of experience to this field of investigation. And so I'm going to turn it over to Jeff to talk about what's going on in the investigations division these days.
Thank you, Tanya. Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone is well. So just wanted to talk about the January 2025 activities that the Investigations Division has been working on. So as many of you know, CPOC tracks all police shootings, which include every Philadelphia police officer's discharge at a person or at an animal, excluding deer. Okay. And in the month of January, there was 1 police shooting at a person, and there were 2 police shootings at dogs. And our office maintains a website to update the public on the police shootings shortly after they occur. And we'll give you a minute there with the link. I'm not going to read that one out for you, but we'll keep the slide up for a second so that everybody can get the link. And that website provides an overview of the Philadelphia Police Department's procedures, our role, and details about the police shootings at people. Oh, and it's linked in the chat as well. Thank you for that. So, like I said, there was 1 police shooting at a person in January. So I'll give you a little brief on that. On January 12th of this year, shortly before midnight, police responded to a Target parking lot at the 4000 block of Monument Street in the Winfield Heights neighborhood. And police, they gathered information that there was a car takeover in the area or a car meetup. And participants drove multiple cars away erratically once the police were arriving, including a person that drove a Camaro, who police believed to be responsible for organizing the takeover or the car meetup. And later in the early morning there, at approximately 2 a.m., the Camaro was located parked on the 900 block of Master Street. And once they identified that location, multiple police vehicles responded to that scene and attempted to surround the Camaro to detain the occupant. But the driver maneuvered his vehicle or their vehicle out of the perimeter of the police vehicles. And as they were leaving the scene, an officer discharged a firearm one time, and it struck the occupant, the driver, in the neck. The occupant did survive and was criminally charged. We can go next slide. Another part that we've been working on and we conducted here in the last month was UFRB. UFRB is the Use of Force Review Board, and our executive director is a voting member on that board. And during the Use of Force Review Board, each police shooting and certain taser incidents are reviewed, and then that board determines if there were any. Sorry, just got that. During this Use of Force Review Board, I'm sorry about that. They review all the incidents of use of force, shootings and tasers, and make sure that there are no policy problems or if there's training or policy recommendations that need to be made. And in that process, the investigations division analyzes and reviews the case materials and makes recommendations to the executive director, who then sits on the board and, like I said, has that voting, is a voting member on that board. We can go next slide. So a little bit more about that. The Use of Force Review Board was conducted, the hearing was conducted on January 7th. There were 9 different cases of firearm discharges involved in that hearing. And during that time, like I said, the board makes recommendations as to whether the discharges complied with the PPD policies, and or if there were tactical or training issues that were involved, and then they recommend, the course of action to adjust and fix those things. Next slide. And then another thing that we've been doing in January is monitoring cases. That's a big part of what we do. And some of the examples that we have going on right now that we're monitoring are complaints alleging violations of the Fourth Amendment, which is searches and seizures, complaints alleging lack of service, complaints alleging of unprofessional conduct by Philadelphia police officers, and complaints alleging of physical abuse from officers. I think that's it for me. I can take questions. And then just to note, if it's anything pertaining to UFRB in the day of that hearing, I'm not actually in the room, so I would direct those to Director McClary, because she is sitting on that board.
But before you go to questions, Chair, I do want to say about how thorough this team is. When they bring these cases to me to vet and talk about, we are sometimes in meetings for 4 and 5 hours discussing these cases, and that's just bringing them to me. That's not talking about the number of hours that they have analyzed and reviewed these cases. So we have very robust conversations and discussions in our office about their recommendations, about the things that they have seen, good or bad. And so it's a really intensive process. And so I just want people to know, to just get a sense of the amount of time that this team puts into analyzing the most serious cases at PPD. And so, Chairman, we'll turn it back over to you.
I think you're muted, Chairman.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Hussein.
No
Does any commissioner have any questions or comments for Investigator Hussein? Am I pronouncing your name right, Jeff?
Yeah, Hussein.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Does any commissioner or have a question or comment for Investigator Hussein?
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, this is Commissioner DeBose, and thank you, Inspector Hussein, for that information. I just wanted a point of clarity.
Sure.
You said that there was one weapon discharged at a person and 2 at a dog. And then you said the Use of Force Review Board went over 9 different cases. I'm not understanding the discrepancy in those numbers.
Yeah, so we were talking about the police discharges within January 2025, and there was 1 at a person and 2 at animals, which were dogs in this case.
Right.
But the Use of Review Board is a quarterly review of
Okay, I thought that's, yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's okay. So, there's different time periods of when those cases get reviewed. Some are from 2024, they're from different time periods. And I think maybe Director McClary might have some more clarity on the like how they get selected.
Yeah,
So,
okay, I appreciate that. I thought that might have reflected a quarterly report, but I didn't remember hearing that. So I just wanted to be clear in my own head. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, I missed that. But yeah, that's a quarterly a board that Director McClary sits on.
Executive Director McClary, I apologize. I keep forgetting. I do have a question for you.
Sure.
Does the Use of Force Review Board do, and this is not for Jeff, this is for our Executive Director, does the Use of Force Review Board have public meetings, or how does that operate after you guys come up with your product?
They don't have public meetings. Right now it's all internal. The only entity that's not a police entity that is involved is CPOC and me sitting on it. So it is not open to the public at all. It's all internal.
Okay.
With the addition of CPOC.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it. Well, with that, it's on you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. We can go to the next slide. So I'm going to turn this over to our Director of Outreach, Talia Grimmage. And one of the things you are going to find that's new with her report is we're going to be joined by Jody Eichel. At one point, she's our comms person, comms officer extraordinaire. I want her to start reporting out on media. Because I think it's really important for the public to see how we use media, how we're appearing in the media. So that's going to be a new part to Director Grimmage's report, but I'm going to turn it over to her and take it away, Director Grimmage.
Good Thursday evening, Philadelphia. My name is Talia Grimmage. I'm the Director of Outreach and Constituent Services. And as I say every time I am before you, I have the esteemed privilege of leading a team of amazing, dynamic individuals who are named here on this slide. We are responsible for quite a bit in the office, providing constituent services to city residents who need resources and often connection to other city services. We assist with taking in complaints, facilitating community education and training for staff, as well as community education. We create content and manage all of the social media for the agency. And of course, we accept and respond to media inquiries. We look forward to expanding our staff to make meaningful connections with underserved communities while also advocating and promoting transparent and equitable policing. Can we go to the next slide, please? So everybody knows it is February, and I don't have to tell you, but I'm going to tell you, it is Black History Month. We all know this. And so we just wanted to take a moment to just acknowledge that and talk about how important it is that we honor and celebrate all of the contributions that people of color make to this country, to the city, to the community. And so I just want to remind everyone that Black history is not just in February. It is 365 days a year, 366 if it's a leap year. So it is an ongoing all year thing. And so we just have a couple of quotes here, some things to keep in mind for this month. And so one of our quotes is from Dr. Mae Jemison that says, "Never be limited by other people's limited imaginations." We have a quote here by the late, great James Baldwin that says, "It is certain in any case that ignorance allied with power is the most ferocious enemy justice can have." And finally, we have a quote from the Honorable Ketanji Brown Jackson that says, "Ordinary humans can do extraordinary things. So go ahead and dream as enormously and as courageously as you can. If you are diligent and well prepared, relentlessly optimistic, and resolute in purpose, you will be capable of creating a brilliant future for yourself." So listen, that one right there, I need to print and put on a t-shirt because that is just such an amazing quote. And I know so many of us want to empower, uplift, and encourage our young people and our youth. So these are quotes that we can definitely share with them and the rest of the community. Next slide, please. Okay, so keeping with that theme, I want to encourage everyone that can hear me under the sound of my voice to spread the word about our first Black History Month essay contest. This is the first time we're doing this. And so what we're doing is we have we're asking all Philly youth ages 13 to 17 to submit an essay, 500 words that answers the following prompt. And the prompt is, "The most inspirational story I've learned during Black History Month is," and you can be as creative as you want to be to answer that question. The first prize is $300. We have some dynamic judges that are going to be reading our essays and making a determination on who's going to be our winners. And those judges are our very own CPOC Commissioner, Elder Melanie DeBose. We have Mike Tooley, who is CPOC's Auditing and Research Analyst. We have Maisha Massey, who is the Philadelphia Police Department Deputy Commissioner for Community Partnerships, and Shania Bennett, who is the Executive Director at the Mayor's Office of Youth Engagement. And so this is up until the 18th, so there's still some time. We are accepting entries, and we are looking forward to giving the award at our next outreach event that's going to take place on February 25th. That is a community movie night. It's taking place at 6 o'clock at the Lucian Blackwell Community Center. That is 761 North 47th Street. And so please share the word with your friends, your neighbors, anyone who may have an interest. We'd love to get some submissions from some of our young people. And of course, we would love to have you come out and join us as we celebrate Black History Month and watch a community film. Next slide, please. So in case you missed our human trafficking virtual town hall in January, it was an amazing success. The video is available online on our YouTube channel. And this was a really great opportunity for us to get together to have a discussion with survivors and subject matter experts regarding the role of police in combating human trafficking in Philadelphia. And so it was a wonderful evening for us to have some discussion. And we just definitely want to give special thanks to our panel, Shay Rhodes, Esquire, who was the co-founder and director of the Institute to Address Commercial Sexual Exploitation at the Charles Widger School of Law, Dr. Sakina Love, the CEO and founder of Redeemed for a Cause Outreach, Elizabeth Stein, a survivor and mentor and child policy associate for Project Protect at the Support Center for Child Advocates. And of course, we had representation from New Day to Stop Trafficking, which is a nonprofit serving those impacted by human trafficking. Jody has already dropped in the link to that town hall. So please save it so that you can go back and listen to that wonderful discussion. Next slide, please. All right. So I mentioned previously that one of the things that we wanted to do was, as we are moving through the year, we wanted to prioritize different districts every quarter. Of course, we will still service all of them and engage with all of them, but we wanted to be intentional about making some connections intentionally at the district level. And so recently we had the opportunity to go to 4 of the captain's town halls. Those took place in the 1st district, where Captain Kelly Robbins is the captain. We were in the 14th Police District with Captain Stuart McCullum, the 35th with Captain Walter Burks, and we were in the 22nd District with Captain Michael Goodson. And so we're looking forward to continuing to engage with these districts as they're having events through this quarter. And as I said, we will still reach out and engage with the city as a whole, but we did want to pay some special attention to these 4 during this time. Next slide, please. Okay, one thing that we are always proud of is the fact that before all of the police officers graduate, or excuse me, the police recruits graduate at the academy, they join us for an oversight lecture that we give to the recruit class. We recently gave our lecture to recruit class 407. There's a picture of them there. And before each class graduates, we spend some time with them before they receive their district assignments and start their tours of service. And so we have a 2-hour presentation that provides an opportunity for us to discuss with the recruits Oversight 101, dispelling myths and rumors. That's a big part of what we do. A lot of times we talk to community members. People have a idea of what they think oversight is, what they think oversight is not. And so it's good for us to really talk about some of those things so that we can educate people on what civilian oversight actually is. We talk about why the recruits chose careers in law enforcement, the history of this agency and oversight in Philadelphia, our role in the disciplinary process. We talk about officer wellness and mental health, and the importance of recruiting officers who look like the communities that they serve. And then we end by watching a portion of the documentary Navajo Class 57. And this film examines the similarities in recruit experiences nationally. It talks about how police departments attract and retain officers and ways to improve community police relations. The film examines the recruit class on the Navajo Nation, and it is very interesting to talk to the recruits in Philly about some of the things that they see. Even though we're in Philadelphia and this is a whole other part of the country, you'd be surprised at a lot of the commonalities that come up in recruit experiences. Next slide, please. Okay, so coming soon, next month, March is Women's History Month. And so CPOC, what we're gonna do is, if it ain't broke, we wanna keep going and not fix it. So last year, we had our first Iconic Philly Women's Awards. And so we're going to do that again. This is going to be the 2nd year. And what this is an opportunity for us as an agency to acknowledge so many of the amazing women that live and work in Philadelphia, that are in the community working in oversight, criminal justice reform, crime victims and survivors, community healing, and equity, diversity, and inclusion. We understand that so many of the issues that community members face intersect. And so policing is a big part of that. And so a lot of these people that we honor are our peers and do similar work. And so we want to spend some time during Women's History Month to just give a shout out to many of the women that are out on the front lines, working hard for the community every day. As usual, we ask the community to nominate women. And so you can send those nominations to cpoc@phila.gov. The subject line, 2025 Iconic Women. So start thinking now, if there's someone that you know is out here that is doing an amazing job that you would love to see highlighted by this agency, please send that to us so that we can add them to our list of nominees. Next slide, please. All right. So if you want to know where we will be next, as I stated, February 18th, that is the submission deadline for our Black History Month essay contest. There's still some time to reach out to a young person that you know that's age 13 to 17, ask them to submit something to us. On the 25th, we will be having a community movie night, an essay award ceremony. The film we're going to be watching is Netflix 6888. Recently was just released on Netflix. We're going to be watching that film. We'll have some food, we'll have snacks, we'll have a great movie, and we'll give out our award to our essay winner. The 26th of February is our next commission meeting. And as I stated, please stay tuned for our Iconic Women Awards. Send us those nominations. And as you can see here on the screen, we do have a list of the PBI dates that are CAPS. Those are complaints against police that are open to the public. So if you have an interest in seeing what that process looks like, you are more than welcome to come to PPD headquarters on the 26th or the 27th at 10 a.m. To see the hearing. But we do ask that you call first. There's a number there because often hearings may be scheduled or some other things may occur that might prevent it from going forward. So please give a call before you travel all the way down to Center City. And with that, I can turn it over to Jody, who I think is going to take it from here. And then maybe we can circle back with some questions.
Great, thanks, Talia. So I'm really excited to quickly recap just like an amazing media coverage of January. By far kind of our best month since me and Tanya have been around at least. So I just kind of want to go through kind of like the timeline of things. So first, the Inquirer reached out to us for a response to the public release of the city's and the police union's term sheets. And the focus of their story was really how the police union's terms reduce oversight in major ways. And Tanya and Catherine were able to really share our agency's concerns through the interview with the Inquirer, and sharing your concerns or statements through an article is a really great tool for any kind of public agency in any company, just because it's not just us saying it, but it's also we're working with someone that's listening to us and understanding us and providing context. So it's a really great tool. Again, Tanya and Catherine were amazing in the interview, and the best part was also it was followed up by an op-ed by the Inquirer's Helen Ubinas, which really gave a community member's point of view about these term sheets that were presented, that we should all be very worried with their proposed terms, at least the FOPs or the police union one. So that was just kind of a cherry on top to kind of boost kind of our own feelings about it. Next, as we all know, the PTAB report was released in January, and part of releasing reports like this, you really need a media strategy behind it. And we all really worked together on this. We had the opportunity to work with the Inquirer's Bill Bender kind of before we released it to go over things. He was able to have a copy of it embargoed. So that means that he can review it, but he's not able to share it to the public or share it to another journalist. So he was able to review it. We were able to set up an interview and he had questions ready to go. He's also extremely knowledgeable about termination, police termination arbitration board, just the whole thing. So he was just a great fit for it. And then the article was a wonderful review of the report and provided a lot of context, not just provided a lot of context to the history behind it. Along with like our big points in the report. And like Tanya said, it made the Inquirer's printed front page, and not everyone picks up the printed one or gets it dropped off at their doorstep anymore. But it's still a big deal because they don't just put any old story on the printed one. So that was a really successful strategy point that we had in that project. And then following the release of our own report, or following the release of our actual PTAB report, report. Pat Lowe from KYW, also Odyssey.com, which is the same place, reached out for an interview, and that was featured on their website as well as a radio segment. So Catherine and Tanya were, their voices, not their faces, but at least their voices were shared across the Philadelphia area, in your car or wherever you listen to your radio. And lastly, I'd like to highlight an article from Trace Media. And if for people who don't know Trace Media, it's a national website that covers gun violence around the country. And reporter Mensa Dean, who actually was a longtime Philadelphia Inquirer journalist who covered basically the same thing, gun violence and police activity, was able to meet with Tanya in person. He came to our office and did like a really in-depth, great Q&A with Tanya. And it was a great opportunity to showcase what CPOC is doing, especially running the ongoing police union contract negotiations. And the best thing about a Q&A is they can't edit much about it. So it was really, Tanya's words, and I thought she did a great job with it. And then I just provided some quotes here that I thought were really impactful that the journalists, and editors used was, it has an obvious impact on the public, but I don't think people understand the impact it has in the police department. McClary said it has a ripple effect, and that is relating to the PTAB report. And then Catherine was able to get, this was through the KYW article, and she said, we're also on the eve of the new contract, so we need to be able to say, should this reform be changed or not right now? I just thought they were really impactful quotes that Tanya and Catherine had, and they've been just really rock stars with all of our media inquiries. Makes my job a lot easier when you have, experts, subject matter experts, and know how to talk to the media. And then just to go over some numbers. So we had 8 total CPOC mentions through various publications, and that can mean other reports. So 8 means Citizens Police Oversight Commission was stated, and it was our office. And then 4 of those 8, we were actual focal points of the articles. I think that's a pretty good ratio of, our media coverage throughout the month, and all positive, honestly, articles made us look really good. And that, hopefully this is just the start, especially with the next couple months with the contract negotiations and more of our initiatives going on. So yeah, that's all I have. So yeah.
And I just wanted to thank you so much, Jody. This is so exciting. And I do want to, I don't think Catherine or I mentioned this when we talked about the PTAB report earlier, or the impact, is that it does have an impact. When officers that a commissioner has decided is not fit to be on the force comes back, it has ripple effects. Some of these officers have been accused of things like sexual harassment. And many of the officers that accuse them of the sexual harassment are still on the force when they come back. And so I think that people don't think about how this, happens. I mean, one of the famous saying among officers that no one hates a dirty cop more than a good cop, right? So for all the good cops that are in the department, when these people come back, it also has a ripple effect around the morale and things inside the police department from the officer side. So I did want to lift that up. So Jody, thank you for that. Reminding us to lift up that part. This becomes full circus. It impacts the community, it impacts the department, and ultimately our city as a whole. So thank you so much, Jody, for all your hard work. To get all this kind of media, you got to have a rock star. I love bragging on my staff. She's a rock star, and it's just so thoughtful in terms of trying to help us figure out our messaging and things of that nature. So I want to thank her for her work, and we will start to highlight that when we can, because I think it's important for the public and the commission to know the hard work. And she's also the engine behind our social media as well, not just our major media, but also our social media. And so, Jody, I want to thank you, and you all will be hearing more from her in the future. So Chair, we're going to turn it back over to you for questions. And so Director Grimmage can field any questions that you all had about the outreach.
Commissioners, I'm going to go past, I'm going to call your name and ask you if you have any questions for the outreach team. Commissioner Hakeem, PA, do you have any questions for or comments for the outreach team?
No questions.
Commissioner John Solomon, do you have any questions or comments for the outreach team?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Commissioner Melanie DeBose, do you have any questions or comments for the outreach team?
I have a comment. I want to say thank you to Director Grimmage for always giving an enthusiastic report. And thank you to Jody, and I'm sorry if I don't know your handle, but thank you because that just feels and sounds like a whole rebranding. And from where I sit, it has come in a timely manner, and it just feels like it's being done with excellence. So thank you to that team and all of the participants therein.
I'll double down on Commissioner DeBose and say thank you to Director Grimmage. Jody, I'll step in and say, man, our social media has improved. Oh man, our social media has improved. Our content is so clear, and people are always asking me, "Hey, what did you see this report? Did you see this report? Hey, what about?" It's encouraging conversations about this office from people that are interested throughout the community. Hey, what is this about? What is this about? And as we know, social media is a great tool. Even the reports that was shared in the link, our community members, please tap into these reports, that the links that has been shared. They're so like eye catching, and I just want to say thank you. Thank you for your efforts, and thank you for your skills.
Thank you, Hassan. I just wanted to also give you a shout out and other commissioners who share our social media. It really makes a difference. Our engagement goes up a ton. I think you shared when we were going through kind of the FOP here, the police union hearing, you shared our video. Our followers increased, engagement increased. So I continue to ask, and whatever you guys decide, please share our material. It really does make a difference. You guys have big following, so it really helps.
Our executive director, is there anything else?
No,
Or
I
is
just
it
want to.
that
I just
time?
want to echo Director Grimmage's call for our participation in the Black History Month. Like she said, this is the first time we're trying it. It was a vision, and so I hope that it has good ripple effects. But we want to hear from you young people, and so I'm just going to echo her call. Please send it out to anybody you know. A lot of you work with after-school programs. You work with schools, rec centers. Please get this out here. We want to be able to highlight the talented young people that we have in the city of Philadelphia. So I'm going to echo her call for getting the word out about the contest. Her team has worked really hard to pull this together, and I'm excited to hear what the young people have to say. And so with that, Chairman, we'll turn it back over to you.
Before I go into our last portion, I would like to encourage commissioners to take a look at the NACO website and what NACO has to offer. And just see what oversight agencies are doing around the country. All right. But it's that time again. It is that time again. It is the community colloquy. And just like every week, I am going to read this line for line. I'm going to read this colloquy so it's no discrepancies. Please, as I'm reading this is giving you time to raise your hand. People, the community members to raise your hand, to send your comments in the chat box. This is your time as I'm reading this colloquy. It will never change. It will always be the same week after week because I'm reading it. So here we go. We welcome public comments and feedback. Please direct your comments to myself, the chair. If you would like to speak, please provide your full name. We will not be unmuting anonymous participants. If you are a member of the media, please identify yourself as such. You can indicate that you would like to speak by raising your hand or sending a request to the meeting host in the chat. You may also submit public comment through the chat. You will have 3 minutes to address the commission. I will keep time and notify the board when those 3 minutes have elapsed. Any documents or follow-up communications can be submitted to cpoc@phila.gov. That is CPOC @ PHILA period GOV. Public comment should be limited to the topics covered in this meeting. All public commenters must refrain from offensive language, threats, or harassments. Participants that violate these instructions will be removed from the meeting. While we welcome your public comments and feedback, commissioners may not be able to respond to your questions or comments during tonight's meeting. Every attempt will be made to follow up by phone or email after the meeting. You can contact CPOC at the email address I provided earlier, cpoc@phila.gov, or call us using 215-685-0891. I repeat, 215-685-0891. And with that, do we have any comments?
It does not, no hands are raised at this time.
Okay. Does any commissioners have any comments at this time? Jody, has anybody sent a comment in the chat or raised their hand yet?
We had a Q&A about if the report will be shared and the recording, and I informed them that we always publish the report as well as the recording, so they're all good to go.
The recording of this meeting?
Yes.
Oh, the recording of this meeting will be on YouTube. If you
Yeah.
don't know, you can find us. The Citizens Police Oversight Commission is on YouTube. Please follow. Please hit the notification button so anything that we do, you will be notified ASAP. We welcome the community to hold us accountable, to join us through social media and any other outlets. Like I said, you can email us or you can call us. Please follow us on Twitter. Please follow us on Instagram. Please follow us on Facebook as well as YouTube. And be sure to hit that notification button. All right. With that being said, if there's no comment or questions for us, commissioners, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
This is Commissioner DeBose. I move that this meeting be adjourned.
Commissioner DeBose has motioned for this meeting to be adjourned. Does any commissioner second that?
Commissioner PA seconds.
Commissioner PA seconds that meeting. And at 7:30 p.m., all commissioners in favor of adjourning this meeting, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
With all 4 commissioners in agreement to adjourn this meeting, it is now 7:30 and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.